The common journey of humans and animals began during the last ice age. Competition in the struggle for survival turned into a symbiotic partnership. It was the greatest stroke of luck in human history. With the help of our pets, we conquered the world.
Animals were bred for certain characteristics, and thus life changed fundamentally.
Humans use the strength of animals, their meat, their wool, their often superior senses and instincts, and at the same time enjoy their loyalty and friendship. It is a treasure of great civilizational value.
But if we're thinking in terms of complex societies, none of that is possible without domestication.
A story about the rise of humankind and about the animals that have accompanied us on this path for thousands of years. Feral horses in the savannah of the American West. When the New World was conquered hundreds of years ago, some of the domestic horses the settlers brought with them escaped. There were no horses in the Americas before the arrival of the Europeans. They had become extinct about 10,000 years ago. It is unclear why. In an ideal habitat, the animals were able to reproduce quickly. But without humans, horses are subject to the laws of nature in the struggle for survival. Only the strong and healthy can survive and pass on their genes. The fertilization of domestic horses is a process contrary to domestication. Here, it is nature that sets the course.
For me, the horse is one of the most beautiful expressions of nature, especially the wild horse. It allows me to reconnect with my inner animal, something that humans have lost.
But there is no longer room for the wild on the prairie.
Shot about 100 yards back.
Mustangs are under conservation. Because natural predators are lacking, there are now more horses than the land can support. Every year, authorities capture some of the animals. Some are sterilized, others are tamed. The aim is to turn them back into domestic and riding horses as quickly as possible, because this is the only way to pass a former Mustang on to horse lovers. Many of these feral horses return to the human world, including Europe. At Frankfurt Airport, horse trainer Ludo Fournet is waiting for a Mustang which has been assigned to him. He is eager to meet the animal.
I think nowadays there are fewer and fewer people, if any, who get a chance to interact with the wild. So it is a gift for me to be able to interact with the horse. And it's also a gift for the horse, because it is my job to make sure that its transition from the wild world to the world with humans is as smooth and easy as possible.
Ludo will take the Mustang to his farm in southern France for training. It is a strange and dangerous world for the horse with a registration number 6380. In a competition lasting only 120 days, the wild animal is to become a tame animal that completely submits to the needs of humans. The jury of an equestrian tournament will judge in the end whether horse 6380 has been successfully tamed.
Wow, magical. It's rare for a horse trainer to be able to experience this type of animal, this type of wild horse. This is the first time the horse and I see each other. It is the first time, and it is very important. The feeling is just, wow.
Ludo's goal for the next 3 weeks is that this Mustang, which has lived far away from humans, accepts the touch of one person. First touch will be the first milestone. A hunter from the Stone Age returns to his camp with prey. It has been a long time since he was able to kill something, because the increasing competition from other groups of people is decimating the game population. As a nomadic hunter-gatherer, he is always threatened by starvation, and in winter, by freezing to death. While he has already learned to make use of the meat, the fur, the skin, and the bones of the animals, our hunting ancestor has yet to realize that animals could also be of use to him alive.
So in the Paleolithic, you have people that were hunting and gathering, and that was the way that they had subsisted for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, since before they were even Homo sapiens. And then you reach a point that in Europe is called the Mesolithic. They're still hunter-gatherers, so we're still talking about groups in the small dozens of people, not hundreds of people. But populations were growing, and people had to come up with solutions to feed themselves.
As they have for thousands of years, wolves follow the hunters and contest their prey. They are bitter enemies in the struggle for survival. But humans are also impressed by the predator's hunting technique, which relies on cooperation. Wolves seek proximity to humans. Their waste is a source of food that can be tapped without much effort. Did the hunters perhaps notice how strikingly similar the wolf is to them in their social behavior? It is to be the first cautious approach of humans to an animal, and that will change the world.
Wolves cooperate excellently with socialized humans. This indicates how it may have been 30,000 years ago. After all, the hunter-gatherers did not have means to lock up the wolves. They did not have chains or bars. That means there must have been cooperation on an equal footing. That is the only possible way to cooperate with wolves, because once I start pushing around a wolf, it goes, I'm done with you.
Here at the Wolf Science Center in Austria's Ernstbrunn Game Park, behavioral scientists study the relationship between humans and wolves going back thousands of years. It is the life's work of behavioral scientist Kurt Kottlerschall to research the oldest and first domestication in human history.
We are cooperative animals. We are geared to cooperate within the clan, in hunting, in raising our offspring, and also in defending the territory against external enemies, but also against other members of the same species. So humans and wolves were a great fit.
Although genetically the wolf is very distant from humans, there is no species in the world more similar to us in behavior. The cooperation between wolves and humans brings many advantages for both sides. The wolf's better sense of smell and superior hearing are especially beneficial to humans.
A very important advantage of having socialized wolves was being safe, even in the darkest night, from the approach of bears, hyenas, or hostile people. If you've ever spent a night with wolves, you know that they warn you, just like dogs do. So when a wolf pricks its ears and goes woof, you know that something is approaching that could be dangerous. This may have been a decisive advantage. Actually, the idea of wolves and humans hunting together, mammoths for example, isn't so far-fetched. These are clearly positive characteristics of wolves. There weren't any negative ones for these early humans, really.
Cooperation with the wolf gave humans a survival advantage and promoted our rise as the prevailing evolutionary force in the world. Even if the animal hunting companion comes second when the prey is divided. The selection and breeding with less self-confident wolf pups may have been a first step in the evolution from wolf to dog. Especially the selection of certain characteristics had an effect. The animals learned to understand the intentions of their humans, to interpret human gestures, such as pointing with a finger. A wild wolf, like any other species, cannot do this. But the success of settling into the world of humans had its price for the animal: submission. Humans set the goal, the dog must obey.
Wolves are much more determined and persistent in pursuing their goals. Thus, when they set their minds on something, they usually achieve it, whereas dogs are quite easily distracted. This is also why dogs, when they can't do something themselves, immediately look back to the human. If a wolf tries the same thing and doesn't reach the goal right away, it takes a few minutes until it turns to the human for help. So the difference is not that the domesticated dogs are naturally more devoted to humans than the socialized wolves. Wolves are simply more determined and persistent.
Various experimental setups are used in the enclosures of the Ernst Brunn Animal Research Center to investigate what turned the wolf into a dog since it has been living with humans.
We have done many cooperation experiments with wolves and dogs. One method is called string pulling. You have a platform with food on top, and there is a rope that runs through two apertures. The cooperating animals pull both ends of the rope to bring the platform to the fence and to reach the food. If only one of them pulls, only the rope comes out. It's easy for the animals to understand.
The wolves work together perfectly. The cooperation even works if only one of the animals is rewarded.
It was very interesting because what we found is wolves cooperate with each other perfectly. Dogs are terrible at teamwork. We can't get them to pull on the rope together.
However, the dog's lack of competence is an advantage for humans. The dog is dependent on its master.
Then we did the experiment with a human, so with a partner the animals know well. Surprisingly, working with a human wasn't difficult for both dogs and wolves, though the wolves wanted to have the other end of the rope from time to time. That shows that the wolves' respect for humans is different from the dogs. There definitely is respect, but they do ask for the other end of the rope. Dogs react differently. When they had a human partner, teamwork was no longer a problem, but they often waited to see what the human was doing before they joined in, and they never tried to get the human's rope. So there were clear differences. Wolves initiate a cooperation, while dogs wait until the human says, "What are we doing now? Let's do it together." Okay, let's go. More
game means more food for people. The cooperation between humans and wolves is profitable for both sides. The ideal qualities of an animal hunting helper are scenting the prey in time, tracking it down, and going after the possibly injured animal.
We see people spending a little bit more time in one place. So they're not fully sedentary. They're not living in towns. They're not living in villages. But maybe you spend a few weeks in one location as opposed to just a few days. And this also changes the way that you're interacting with your landscape. It changes how much food you're getting out of each patch of land. And it also has people getting used to staying in one place for a little bit. So yeah, by the Mesolithic, we just see people exploiting a lot more ecosystems that they hadn't been previously. And with this comes a whole new set of technologies.
Until now, humans could only survive in small groups. Thanks to new specialized hunting weapons, they can now ensure the survival of their growing hordes. Large, strong animals are also hunted, like the Aurochs, the ancestor of cattle. Hunters both fear and admire these powerful creatures. They are a rewarding hunting prey and a coveted trophy. Humans, once a small and weak part of the food chain, are gradually beginning to ascend to the position of ruler over the animal kingdom and the world.
Come here. Let's go. Come here. Come here.
Come.
Even though the original Aurochs is irretrievably extinct, Klaus Kropp wants to achieve the closest possible approximation to the original cow by backcrossing with the genes of modern cows.
Of course, an ecosystem has many, many components. One of those disappeared with the extinction of the Aurochs. That component cannot be replaced by our current cattle breeds, which, as we all know, largely live in stables. And since we want to do something for biodiversity, we thought this would be a good way, to create an animal that comes as close as possible to the Aurochs.
A reversal of domestication back to the wild animal in order to repair an ecosystem. There was a similar attempt in the last century, albeit in a completely different context. Under the Nazis, the strong Germanic primeval cattle was to be bred back. Part of the hunting community at the time was enthusiastic about the strength and aggressiveness of the Aurochs.
Big animals have something very primeval about them, something very powerful. Seeing a bull with a shoulder height of 1.70 meters that weighs over a ton trudging around the forest is very impressive.
The idea of the Germanic super cow failed. The aggressive animals could not be held in captivity. The last specimens were slaughtered after the end of the war. In Klaus Kropp's backbreeding, the characteristic aggressiveness is a disqualifying criterion. The animals are meant to enrich protected natural areas in the future.
These animals are suited to find their place in a, let's say, 21st century wilderness. They do not need humans. Our animals are outside 365 days a year. They can survive cold winters, hot summers, and they can also defend themselves against large predators like the wolf. We've already seen that in our project areas.
While only 10 million people inhabited the world when the hunter-gatherers started settling, today there are more than 7 billion. At the same time, about 100 to 1,000 times more species have become extinct since the Neolithic revolution than in the previous 60 million years. The beneficiaries of this development are the domestic and farm animals, which were able to spread all over the world in the wake of humans. Today, the descendants of the Aurochs are among the most abundant large mammals in the world in terms of numbers. In an evolutionary sense, being domesticated pays off.
The Aurochs was a wild cow found throughout Europe and also in North Africa and Asia. Its life changed fundamentally when humans became sedentary. Basically, the Aurochs was brought home to the settlements. It was tamed. It was probably a calf that was taken away during the hunt. Then, slowly, it was imprinted by humans, and the characteristics of the animal gradually adapted to what was needed. In the end, a new source of meat was obtained that was easy to keep. The former Aurochs changed quite a bit through domestication. It turned into our characteristic domestic cattle that we still have today. The size decreased, the variety decreased, the horn shape, and finally also the difference between male and female animals became smaller and smaller, so that it no longer looked like an Aurochs.
The domestication of the Aurochs that led to cattle was to represent a quantum leap for sedentary societies around the world. Today, 1.5 billion cows are important suppliers of meat and milk to humankind. On his farm in southern France, Ludo Fournet is getting ready for his daily work with the wild horse. For the past 3 weeks, the trainer has been trying to find an approach to wild horse number 6380. But before he resumes his daily training with the Mustang, Ludo first plays with his other horses.
Shadow! Tarek! Viens mon Tarek! Hé hé! Pichou! Wouhou! Tarek! Tarek, viens. Ouais. C'est bien.
Trust and mutual respect are the keys to his success. And that was his approach with all the horses that have passed through his hands so far.
Et on a un petit peu trop oublié.
We have forgotten our connection to the animal world, through education, through culture. We have always wanted to keep humans apart from animals, and we have always put ourselves above animals, although our proper place is right amongst them. They are the ones that can give us lots of answers to the questions as to who we are and why we're here. I think that today, in the relationship between humans and horses, it is our task to question once again the behavior of humans towards the whole of creation, towards all ecosystems and all animals on the planet. There you go.
Tenderness is a language everyone understands, humans and horses.
These are magical moments in which we are a part of each other. We are one. There is nothing that separates us. I trust the horses and they trust me.
Bien sûr, je pourrais pas faire ça avec un Mustang que je connais pas ou un cheval mal élevé.
Clover hay might help in making the wild horse accept a human's touch. We look, move, and smell like predators. From a wild horse's perspective, we are dangerous enemies. Proximity to humans demands a lot from an animal that takes flight when in danger.
In this type of work, at first, I actually do almost nothing with the horse. I just sit next to it. It doesn't know yet whether I'm harmless or dangerous. Its first instinct tells the horse that I am dangerous, because that's how this species survived. Through my gentle and slow approach, I want to be categorized as positive by the horse. And, over time, the animal will perceive my presence as very pleasant.
Because of the metal fence, the Mustang can only retreat to a limited extent. Halter and rope are out of reach for the trainer.
When working with these horses, you have to be very, very alert. You have to be sensitive to all the signals, so as not to make any mistakes and put yourself in danger. A horse easily weighs 500 kilograms and moves very fast. That makes it a potentially dangerous animal.
The human's approach to the horse must happen gradually. The horse has to play along. It is a sensitive approach to the animal's stimulus threshold.
I have to understand the horse, how it works, how its brain works. It is as complex as our brain in terms of neuroanatomy and neurochemistry. The horse's emotions are the same as ours. Joy, sadness, anger, surprise, and fear are among the 6 main emotions that all mammals have.
What seems like an accidental contact is a great moment between the wild horse and its trainer. This is what entering the world of humans looks like. From now on, it will no longer be Mustang number 6380. Instead, it will be called Shaman.
It's a very, very important moment because the horse allows the human to come and touch it. I feel somewhat privileged to be able to live this moment, like a photographer would feel if they could observe a lone wolf or a fox in the snow. So I feel privileged to experience these moments. I feel gratitude towards the horse. I feel the trust.
There are 100 days left to turn the Mustang into a domestic horse. With the ability to forge bronze, people can make weapons, but also tools for more efficient farming. Ploughing becomes easier. More crop can be harvested than what is needed for survival. Trade takes place throughout Europe. The concept of specialization and efficiency soon applies to every area of life, including the use of animals.
Something changed in the 4th millennium BC. All of a sudden, people started intensively using the secondary products of the animals. And that's when the first wagons and wheels were built, and when the cattle were used as draft animals for the first time. It's a huge difference, whether I simply take an animal with me and ultimately slaughter it and use the products, or whether I find a secondary use for the living animal.
People now make use of not just the meat, but the strength of the animals. Of course, no creature cooperates voluntarily. It has to be put under a yoke first. Which animals can be tamed and which are untamable will determine their domestication and often also the long-term survival of the species.
The animal's strength should by no means be underestimated. People realized this and began using them as draft animals. And that was really a central factor in keeping these animals for thousands of years, because they could ensure the human survival by helping to cultivate land. Yoking cattle is what ultimately enabled people to do farming work already thousands of years before Christ.
Sodass die da einen langen Vorsprung den Pferden gegenüber gehabt haben.
horse trainer Ludo Fournet has 50 days left to turn the wild Mustang into a domestic horse. To do this, he must rid the animal of its natural fears. Ludo's own biography can help him do this.
When I was young, as a child, then as a teenager, and even as a young adult, I had a lot of trouble controlling my emotions. I was regularly overwhelmed by emotions of anger and anxiety that eventually manifested in slightly aggressive behavior. It became a bit of a problem. As a result, my parents took me to a dojo. That anger served as fuel that I used in karate competitions. That fuel also came in handy when I began working more and more with horses. Surprisingly, the more I worked with them, the calmer I became. I went less and less to the dojo to channel my anger. In fact, the horses taught me to not just channel it, but to get rid of it completely. So, martial arts helped me learn to manage my anger and anxiety. But they were still there, and the horses completely freed me of them.
Et les chevaux m'ont en fait totalement libéré de la colère et de l'anxiété.
No more fears. Shaman now tolerates a halter and the proximity of humans without any problems.
In fact, horses help humans. Humans also help the horses. It's a process of giving and receiving, just like yin and yang. I try to think like a horse, and the horse tries to get closer to me. This is how we become respectful partners in a harmonious relationship.
Ludo carefully approaches the horse and thus, step by step, reduces the flight animal's fears.
The first priority is being able to touch the horse. If it ever gets injured, I have to be able to take care of it. I need it to really trust me. Very good. Head down. Very good.
Très bien, super. Voilà. Et une fois qu'on a mis en place tout ce travail de confiance,
once we've really built that trust, we can do simple exercises.
Simple, mais juste, tu vois, je puisse vraiment bouger autour du cheval.
I can move around freely without the horse being afraid of me.
Et une fois que ça a été acquis, on a mis en place.
After that, I can start controlling its movements in order to communicate with it.
À communiquer avec lui, et que je peux contrôler.
This is how I easily control its movements.
Tous ces mouvements-là assez facilement. Et c'est une simulation
This simulates horse riding.
Donc je peux
I put this ball on it,
passer le ballon
move
sur
it
lui.
around, and even let it jump on it. See?
Tu vois? Faire bouger un petit peu le ballon. Hop, simplement monter dessus. Voilà.
I'm getting up here, and it has to follow.
De venir, voilà. Se mettre.
Very good.
Hop. Ça me permet, voilà, de
See,
pouvoir.
now I can bend over it without putting too much weight on it.
Ça me permet de pouvoir me mettre sur
I can
un pied
lean one of my legs against it
et
now.
pouvoir commencer un petit peu à. Okay. Et je veux qu'il me regarde.
Now I want it to look at me.
C'est très important qu'il pense tout le temps à moi.
It's very important that it completely focuses on me. It has to be able to see me all the time, so that it doesn't forget I'm here. Otherwise, I could startle and scare it. I can't get on top of it at the moment, but I can do smaller things. I move my legs a little to rub them against it, just like this. I know that I shouldn't put my hands on its back right now. If I did, it would probably have a strong reaction. I can ask it to turn its head to me, just a little bit. I don't want it to move its feet. I just want its nose closer to me, but it's resisting.
Okay. Cool.
It is a giant step for Shaman on its way to becoming a tamed horse. In the coming days, horse trainer Ludo will be trying to raise the horse's stimulus threshold higher and higher. There is a long way to go until Shaman will be completely tamed. Picture-perfect harmony. A shepherd watching over his flock. The herding dogs, selected over many thousand years for their special abilities, pretty much do the work instinctively. But there is nothing left of the former respect on an equal footing that existed between the wolf and the Stone Age human.
The domestication of sheep and cattle took place with the help of dogs. But suddenly, there was an authoritarian social structure, a hierarchical structure. Therefore, it is no surprise that dogs today differ from wolves in how they perceive dominance and hierarchy. It is the result of breeding over the last 10,000 years. It is a natural part of sedentism. People had to learn to accept hierarchies in a way that the groups of hunter-gatherers never had to. Hierarchies emerge. There's a power imbalance. But on the other hand, of course, you have security. You have someone to oversee and organize the supplies. We still have this concept today. We elect our leaders democratically, but we also expect them to do something for us.
1, 2, 3. It's okay.
In the early Middle Ages, the close coexistence of humans and animals persists. An animal for every need, be it raw materials, food, safety, warmth, strength, social status. The diversity of animal companions makes it easier for humans to spread all over the world, even to live in places where they had never been able to live as nomads.
When we talk about the settling of humans, then we're not talking about a switch that's flipped and suddenly everything's different. It was more of a step-by-step development. Humans started to use animals differently. All of a sudden, there were now multiple ways to make use of them, also of the living animal. Humans came up with the idea of using the sheep's wool. They didn't just slaughter them and use the fur, they used the wool as a source of fabric. At some point, there weren't even hair sheep anymore that simply shed their wool of their own accord in the spring. Now there were wool sheep as we still know them today. Humans had suddenly tapped into a whole new resource.
Sheep were originally domesticated for the meat, and it took thousands of years until people began to realize and develop the potential of sheepskin. The specialization of sheep and their products, wool, meat, and milk, continues to this day. The insight of making an animal profitable in several ways further accelerated the development of cultural history.
We've discovered so many benefits from the history of domestication that eating an animal was not the first priority anymore, and therefore people were rather careful with the meat, because they always knew that if they kill an animal to eat its meat, they would be giving up on, well, and then comes the long list of benefits that animals offer.
Because of their sheer strength, cattle have been the most important farm animals for much of human history. Whereas previously, people had to use hoes and digging sticks to prepare the soil for sowing, a plough pulled by cattle made it possible to work much more land in less time. With the tractive force of cattle, humans began even more to change their environment and to shape it for their own purposes.
This step ultimately led to a mobilization of humans when the wheel and the wagon were invented. Then, of course, there was also agricultural progress, because they no longer had to work with hand tools, or even pull such tools themselves, since animals did the work for them. It's a marked increase in the effectiveness of agricultural work that comes with the domestication of cattle.
An innovation that was to shape agricultural societies for a long time to come. Human ingenuity keeps finding new uses for domesticated animals, which leads to a steady improvement of food supply, and thus to a steadily growing world population.
The strength of the animal was decisive in revolutionizing agriculture, because for the first time it was possible to turn over soil effectively, which simply hadn't been possible by hand.
Hunters and gatherers become farmers and shepherds. Nomads become inhabitants of settlements, villages and cities. They become craftspeople, artists, architects, generals. Domesticated animals play a fundamental role in the emergence of human civilization.
If we're thinking in terms of complex societies, complex civilizations, none of that is possible without domestication. Without domestication, you don't have enough food to lead to craft specialization, to lead to writers and philosophers and people doing these kinds of things. In a hunter-gatherer society, you have individuals who, don't have to work so much throughout the day, perhaps. They do have a lot of individual free time, but there's a limited amount of things, of options for what they can do with that time. Largely also because once you have domestication, craft specialization, you have access to different kinds of raw materials, different kinds of resources, mining operations. I mean, it's just, it really cascades out from that one thing. If you can secure your food source and then eventually get a small group of people who are responsible for producing food, then you have the ability as a culture to do a whole lot of other things at a grand scale that might not have been possible before.
Every extended family has a strict daily routine. Every member knows their tasks and social position. Day and night, they take care of the well-being of their animals, with which they now live in close proximity. When the animals are doing well, everyone benefits. It is an intense relationship of mutual dependence.
Of course, when the cattle were brought into the homes of people, some of the workflows improved significantly. Even the body temperature of the animals was a benefit to their owners. Living with the animals under one roof made many tasks, such as milking, much easier. Humans and animals became closer than ever, which certainly led to a new kind of relationship. The connection between farm animals or pets and their owners still exists today, and it has its origin in that phase when, for the first time ever, humans linked themselves to animals so closely in order to change them according to their own purposes.
Extended families become clans, tribes, dynasties. Property is inherited. Histories of creation and lines of descent gain importance. Rites and common customs create identities and the benevolence of supernatural powers. Shared life with animals has made the human world multifaceted. After 120 days of express domestication, the grand finale of taming a wild horse. At an equestrian tournament in Aachen, Mustang Shaman has to show what Ludo taught him. It's showtime. The wild animal was untouchable for humans just 4 months ago. Now horse trainer Ludo even rides the animal without reins and halter.
Every wild horse has its calm side that can be brought out by handling it the right way. In the end, it will be a horse that trusts you. When dealing with a horse, you have to try to let its potential and beauty unfold without overwhelming it mentally. Highlight everything it has to offer, its communication skills and its physical abilities. Once the animal has set foot in the human world, little by little, you can remove every little thing that bothers you, as you would when shaping a rough diamond.
The animal lover's longing for the authentic, the pure and the wild makes for a profitable business. Taming wild horses has a fascinating effect on many people. Horse whisperers, like Ludo Fournet, enjoy cult status among the fans. Mustangs are appreciated by horse enthusiasts for their stamina and health, qualities that some domestic horses have lost over centuries of breeding.
This is what we're really looking for. We want to go back to the wilderness, or have some wilderness in our world, because there really isn't anything wild in our everyday lives anymore. Everything is regulated. It's about finding the meaning of life and returning to a sacred, wild place in nature.
The Mustang feels safe with Ludo and accepts his dominance. And the audience marvels at the tricks. It is the end of Ludo's and Shaman's journey together. As if on cue, and seemingly of its own free will, the animal does exactly what the trainer asks of it. The human has conquered the wild. And the animal takes a bow. A great success for Ludo, but also for the newly tamed domestic horse. Shaman will be well taken care of by humans in the future.
It never goes away completely. There's still a little bit of a wild horse in a tame Mustang. It still remains a little wild, and the wild horse can always come back. But even if it stays a little wild, the relationship with the human will be very special, and the horse will find joy in it, because it won't have to fight for survival in the wild like it did before. So it's true. It's a win-win situation.
C'est vraiment une question win-win, gagnant-gagnant.
In 590, Pope Gregory I banned all Christians from eating the meat of warm-blooded animals during Lent. Eating meat was said to stand in the way of reflecting on the life and suffering of Jesus. But some monks cunningly avoided the rule by simply relabeling mammals as fish. Killing and eating animals inevitably leads to sin.
And that's also because killing animals was linked to a feeling of guilt that had to be dealt with somehow. Thus, a lot of religious rituals, for example, have been developed to try and wash away the guilt.
The Bible says, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and every creature that crawls upon the earth." Sharing life with domestic animals has fundamentally shaped us humans. But there is also the other side of the coin.
Domestication is a bit of a devil's bargain. I think that there's a lot of bad things that go along with it. But when you start to farm and when you have domesticates, one of the major things that you're committed to suddenly is staying still, being at one place on the landscape. And this is a really big deal because you can no longer account for a drought or a tornado or any number of natural disasters. If you're a forager, you can just walk away. If there aren't a lot of resources, you can just move on. If you're a farmer, you might starve. You're also then dealing with neighbors, which can be a good or a bad thing. But foraging groups, if you're having a conflict, you can just walk away from the conflict. And that's no longer possible once you're in a sedentary situation. You living in close contact with animals because you're living at higher population densities, this is when you're more susceptible to disease, and disease being really, really catastrophic for your population. With people who have settled down and started farming, you can accumulate wealth, which seems nice at first, but if you're the one who doesn't have access to land or isn't accumulating the wealth, suddenly you're dealing with social inequality. We have lots of reason to believe that gender roles changed a lot with domestication, and the roles of women became quite marginal, leading to a lot of the problems that we still see today in many parts of the world.
Thus, domestication has many facets. It enables civilization as we know it, but it can also become a Pandora's box. The pandemics of the last centuries all go back to the close contact of humans with animals. Humans become uncomfortably aware that they, too, are only a part of the whole. Some of the conclusions drawn from this are radical.
There are consequences. If we are animals, and we can finally accept this fact, we give up on the centuries-long fight against the theory of evolution. Darwin claimed nothing else in his book about the evolution of the species, namely that we are connected with the animals, because we are animals.
Humans and animals depend on each other. The industrial and digital revolution will be put to the test once again by this common fate.